Boom, we're live. It is Chris Igo. I promised I would do a live stream, and so I am fulfilling that promise to you. The Florida real estate market is collapsing, or so they will have you think. And today we're going to go into the real-time numbers as to what's actually happening in the Florida housing market, within the markets that I service, many others that I probably don't. And I also take requests. So if you are in the chat, you see this live, I am happy to answer, or at least try to give you the most actionable information that you can, because information is power. And in order to have leverage, whether you're buying or selling, you must know exactly what is happening in real time in the hyper-local market that you're shopping in, right? And so with that, I've said in the past, I will keep you in real time, letting you know exactly what I see in the market. And numbers don't lie, they scream. People do lie. And if you watched any of my recent content, you heard a story about that. Working with an agent who was less than transparent, less than honest. And that's okay, because we will negotiate around that no matter what. Because if you are fibbing and telling a lie, Pinocchio, you're going to get busted. Nonetheless, we're back, and I'm back. Promised I would be. The lighting might not be optimal. The audio might not be optimal. And frankly, the whole thing right now in this setup is not optimal for me. But I'm committed to following through with what I said I would. And I promised I would do a real time this week. And this is the end of the week. So let's get into it right now. I'm going to start off on the macro level, right? And fully transparent. These numbers are not real time. The numbers that I'm going to share after this they're as recent as yesterday. And we're going to cover Boca Raton, Boynton Beach, Delray Beach. We're going to start with single family residential. We're going to move into the condo markets. Also, the condo markets pretty much by and large everywhere are dumpster fire. We're going to cover Dade, Palm Beach, Broward counties. We're going to talk about Coral Springs, Parkland. We're going to talk about Fort Lauderdale. We're going to talk about pretty much every big city that it's too hot. No, I'm not stripping. I'm just taking off the first layer. It's unusually cold down here in South Florida. It was in the 30s earlier. I think it might have been with the wind chill in the 20s, but it is very unseasonably cold. And you guys probably already know that, especially if you're in another state. It has been it's been one heck of a winter, and it's not raining more than it is currently, right? So shouts out to Christy and Ian, who just closed on their home in Canyon Trails. We got them $100,000 discount. I know they're thrilled. But also shouts out to people who found me on YouTube and reached out this week. So shout out to Kevin, Blue Rosen, Anthony, Bella, Jason, Darren. Missing probably a handful of other people, but active shoppers looking to buy right now, relocating from other parts of the state, but maybe not necessarily in the know as to what's happening right now in the market. So let's get into it right now and add this to the stage. Okay. I can't see it. You probably can, but I will figure this out. We gonna figure it out together. Also, shout out to Sawyer and Brooke and my mom and dad, who I think may be watching at this point. My daughter told me specifically not to shout her out, and you know what I feel about being told what to do. So what we have here, let me see if I can make this bigger. Okay, so this is December, right? This is what you will get from the real estate. This is what you will get from Zillow. This is what you will get from most agents. The data that they provide is not real-time information. It's always a month or more old. So we're looking at December, but I want you to see the macro. I want you to see what the state of Florida looks like right now, or at least as of December, because it gives you a macro picture of what happened at the end of last year. When we get into the real-time numbers, I think it will be very helpful because you'll see the changes. But again, right now, I'm focusing on the areas and the market in which I service. So Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade, right? What you're going to see is there was a 13% uptick in closed sales. 3,180 closed sales in December versus 2,811 in December of 2024. So a big uptick in terms of closed sales. It breaks it down into cash sales, median sales price, average sales price. What you see is the average sales price in Florida was up 14.4%. That doesn't come as a all of Florida. Specifically, I'm talking about Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties. And so this is instructive if you're shopping in one of these three counties, but completely distorted if you're looking in a very specific area. But again, macro is important. And this is an expensive place to live. There's no time to, median time to contract uptick 14% from 41 days to 47. Median time to contract upticked from 81 days to 84. Pending sales, new listings down in December, down 1%, which is not surprising. Many folks hold off on listing. They don't want to list during the holiday season. But active listings up 2.7%. Pending inventory up 37% from 2,800 to 3,835. If I can see, and it will help if I put on glasses. And now I can see a little. No, I can't see anything. Just to be prepared. And if you can't see, you got to put glasses. But still can't see. Pending inventory. So new listings were down 1% in December. Pending inventory was up. I can actually see better without my glasses on. 37%. Ooh, skip to the next slide. And month supply of inventory is up 2%, 5.1 months, right? 5.1 months means that you probably have a lot of leverage while you're negotiating. And then the active inventory, meaning homes sitting on the market unsold, that was up 3% at 15,446 in this Tri-County area, right? Now, let's look at foreclosures. Let's look at the weakness in the market, right? The financial pain that everybody is looking for when they're trying to purchase a home. And hopefully you don't find yourself in financial pain when you have to sell, because it typically means you're not going to have the leverage that you need to get what you want. But there has been tremendous talk about fire sales happening. There has been tremendous talk, including from me, including this thumbnail, including the title. Yes, I'm trying to scare the shit out of you. The reality is that nobody's going to click on a video that says how great the market's doing. But the numbers will reveal that. And I remain committed to sharing the truth so you know exactly what the numbers are, no matter where you're shopping, right? Traditional sales, we just covered. Foreclosures are up 140.9%. And that is a terrifying percentage increase if we don't look at the actual numbers relative to the actual sales. There were 53 foreclosures in December. There were 22 in December of 2024. 53 closed foreclosures, up 141%. Sounds terrifying. But relative to the 3,118 sales that actually happened, the number is negligible. Now, I've had a lot of people reach out about what they see on Zillow pre-foreclosures. Most of the time, when you see those pre-foreclosures, they're not actually foreclosures. Those are leads that are being generated by Zillow to sell to somebody, whether it be an investor, an agent, someone else, I don't know. But Zillow is doing their best to take over and capture all of the MLS information, all of the MLSs, become their own brokerage if they're not already, and weaponize our data and profit off it. But that being said, foreclosures are still extremely low and very rare, specifically in the area in which I work. Short sale, same thing. Headline number, scary, up 233% from 3 to 10. And this is, again, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, right? Those are the numbers for December, and that is a month old. So from there, let's now jump to what in God's name did I just do? And let's turn it back to the micro market. Let's close this, remove this, add this. Okay, now we are in business. And we are going to start, again, single family home data. And I have this pulled up for Canyon Trails. The reason I did that is because most of the shoppers that I'm working with right now are looking in the Canyon communities within West Boynton. Either that or they're selling in West Boynton within the canyons. So the Canyons Enclave is comprised of Canyon Trails, Canyon Springs, Canyon Isles, Canyon Lakes. It is a very family-friendly place to live. It is a GL Homes community, and the benefit to that is you're getting the country club lifestyle without the country club fees. But the Canyons were the last community that they built before they went to the next level, right? So the next GL communities that were built were all much nicer in terms of the amenities that they provide. And this was right around when the pandemic was happening, and it was just a bonanza in all of these GL communities. GL was extremely smart. They went out there, they acquired this land when it was dirt cheap prior to the pandemic, and they've just been building everywhere they can. And each community since has been nicer than the next. The amenities are nicer than the next. But we're running out of land here. So one of the communities that they built was on a municipal golf course, which they got from the municipality, Boca Raton. It was a defunct golf course for years, but builders are looking to build on anything that they can without going into the Everglades. And if they do go into the Everglades, then this is not going to be a place for anybody to live because it will completely destroy the ecosystem. But enough out of me for that. Let's look at the Canyons numbers right now. And I hope you can see this on the screen. Good, you can. And nobody's watching, but if you are, and when you do, thank you for watching. I hope you find this information to be beneficial. And if you need help with anything buying, selling, or mortgage related, please reach out because we will connect you with an all-star professional in terms of the mortgage space, which gives, and that's Ryan Brandenberger at Team Brandenberger with Cross Country Mortgage. They will give you the speed which you need in order to be able to leverage a better discount. But here's what we got right now. December, which we just covered, but not in this hyper-local market. This is extremely hyper-local. We're looking at the Canyons Enclave, but we're also including some other 55 plus GL communities that are in the surrounding area, which are similar, but they're for 55 plus active adults. Very nice place to live. West Boynton is a hotspot, and typically in the past, it has been a little bit more affordable than a Boca Raton or a Delray Beach. But in some instances, that's simply not true. But let's go into, again, this is macro still. It's still, we could go even more granular and go street by street if needed. And if you're going to buy or sell, we will get that granular, but I'll be here for 5 hours if I don't. If I do that. And so if there's something that you want to know about a neighborhood or where you're thinking about buying or selling, then please reach out. We'll do a deep dive. But for the sake of time, I'll try to keep this as brief and as valuable as possible. All right. So what we see, December versus November, within 33473 zip code, again, Canyons Enclave, the average active price jumped, actually, take that back, went down 1.2% from 1.21 in November to 1.196 in terms of active listing price. Now, the listing price is what the seller's opinion of value is, and it's what their agent agreed to let them list at. What I found, and what you might find, is that there are lots of homes sitting on the market unsold for a year or more, or perhaps they've been listed for 6 months and then taken off the market for a period of time to appear as if they are a new listing. They're not, nobody's fooled, but you'll see a consistent pattern of properties that went on the market, expired unsold, and then they finally, at some point, come to reality after they've had their teeth kicked in by the market, because your home is only going to be worth what a ready, willing, and able buyer will pay right now. Nothing else. Doesn't care about your opinion of value. The market doesn't care about my opinion of value. It only cares what somebody with a check in hand or cash in hand or a deal ready to go is willing to pay right now. So that being said, the average sold price, as you can see, there's a big delta between the difference change in average active price versus average sold. November, it was 1.126 million, down 23% in December. Okay, it's a big move. 868 versus 1.126. Now, so far this year, January 1st through the 30th, it's February 1st right now. What you'll notice is in that same time period versus 2025, the average active price is up 9.6%, 1.211 to 1.327 million in terms of active price. The average sold price, again, very different. What's actually closed jumped 20.1% from 867 to 1,041,000. So that's what it is right now. As of yesterday, those are the numbers in terms of active, average price, and sold price. But now let's look at months of inventory. Oh, an unexpected problem has occurred. Those are the only kinds of problems that that occur. The unexpected ones. The punch that knocks you out is the punch that you don't see. But let's go back and see if I can figure this out. Okay, now we got one supply of inventory. And hopefully this is coming through loud and clear. Let me just check and see if this is even happening. Oh, it's not. Well, looks like I went about 17 minutes before I decided to actually click publish the video. So if you're seeing this, I have no idea. And if you're seeing this later, thank you for watching. But we're going into a deep dive into the Canyons inventory. Canyons, Canyon Enclave, Canyon Trails, Canyon Isles, Canyon Lakes and Springs in West Boynton. It's also surrounded by some other GL communities that are 55 plus active adult communities that are very nice. But the numbers that we're talking about right now are extremely hyper local. I started with talking about the Tri-County area. I see two of you watching right now. So thank you for watching. Evidently hitting the publish button was something I should have done about 17 or 18 minutes ago when I started this live stream. But that's all good. That's all good. It's okay. All right. So let's get back to what the numbers are so that you know. We're talking about months supply of inventory. You can see the bar graph. There are a lot more homes, which is the light green, sitting on the market versus sold, which is the dark green. And that's a pattern you must be aware of, right? Supply and demand will always dictate price. But if we compare November to December of last year, the for sale listings were down 3%. Make sure I got this right. Oh, no. I'm looking at these numbers. I'm saying those numbers are huge. That does not seem like hyperlocal. It's not. Let's go. So disregard everything I just said. And let's get right. Evidently, when the error occurred and I hit the refresh button, it refreshed to something that I was not interested in going over quite yet. But we are talking about single-family residential homes that are for sale or have sold. We're talking about supply, and boom, whammo, there we go. These numbers seem far more reality-based, but still, big delta between sold and sitting on the market unsold, right? The light green is active and the dark green is what's sold. The pattern is something that you must be aware of. The trend is or isn't your friend, depending on whether you're buying or selling. But what you can see is whoa, okay. November versus December of last year within the zip code of 33473, if I can get this to not glitch on me here, was down 11.3%. So 53 homes for sale in the Canyons Enclave and surrounding area. December, there were less, 47. Not surprising. A lot of people hold off on listing during the holiday season. But the solds were, there's a big uptick, right? Up 66.7%, almost a double, 12 to 20. Not quite a double, but math is never my strong suit. Unless we're negotiating, in which case it's spot on. Pending, we're down 66.7%. There were 18 in November. There were 6 in December. But ain't nobody got time for what happened last year. They want to know what's happening right now. So let's get into that. And this is the difference between what you're going to see on my channel versus other channels. They don't dive deep into the real-time numbers. They're giving you what happened last month or longer, because that's what gets reported by the MLS. That's what gets reported by the realtor associations. That's what gets reported to Zillow. So anything that you're seeing out there is most likely a minimum of a month old, which is not helpful or useful to you at all if you're shopping right now. So if we compare the beginning of January versus December, today's February 1st, right? So I don't have today's information. It's happening right now. But up till yesterday, the the homes for sale were basically the same, right? 46 versus 47, 2.1% change, but essentially the same number. Solds down 23.8%, let's call it 24, 16 versus 21, and pended, big jump, 25% gain, 15 versus 12. Great. That's exactly what it is in the Canyons Enclave. And right now I've got other shoppers and sellers, one about to list, a few that are actively shopping, and we have to know what the numbers are and get into them so we know where we have leverage. And again, we just use this information to weaponize it in order to get a discount. And shout out to Christy and Ian. They just got a $100,000 discount on a home, which isn't a fire sale price. It was just way overpriced over a year ago when their professional decided to let them list at that price. And if you overprice your home, do me a favor, don't start small. Don't just go $100,000 over whatever the market is. Go big, $1 million, 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion. Doesn't matter. All three of them have the same likelihood of selling, which is 0%. Nobody's stupid and nobody's overpaying. So you must advise your clients the right way, or you're just going to waste time, money, and nobody wants that. But that's the deep dive into the Canyons. Let's get a little bit more macro and look at the city of Boynton Beach, which Boynton Beach is, well, one, the Canyons are in Boynton Beach, but when you're looking at the macro number for Boynton Beach, you must know there are many, hundreds, maybe more, of micro markets that exist within Boynton Beach. So the macro number, although instructive, doesn't tell you anything if you're shopping in a particular area. And right now I'm working with some clients that are looking in another neighborhood in Boynton Beach, Gateway Palms. I was unfamiliar with it. And when I say unfamiliar with it, I've driven past it at least, I don't know how many hundred times, but I've driven past it a lot. And yet never been in there, never sold in there, don't know anybody who lives in there, up until just recently where I met the seller, showed this property, they have a house that's priced to sell. I was blown away by how nice this house was. Excuse me. In the low 400s is where it will trade. I did not think you could find a single family home in a gated community as nice as this home, with a massive backyard, a massive front yard, which you don't see in new communities. The builders eat up that space with lots of different things. They don't typically provide a lot of land unless you're paying an extreme premium. Land is a very scarce resource. But to find this neighborhood, find this hidden gem, was surprising to me and encouraging to me, because it should be noted, the home was originally listed in the mid-5s. It's been on the market twice, but it took the seller a long time to come to reality. But we're in the process of trying to put that deal together. It hasn't happened as fast as I thought it would, and maybe it will never happen. But if it's not this house, it'll be another house. Someone is going to get a great deal. And that being said, we're talking about Boynton Beach overall. Let's start with the sale versus sold. I'm not going to go into December versus November because honestly, it's a month old. It's not relevant. What is relevant is what's happening right now in real time. So January versus December, The for sale, the properties for sale increased almost 11%, 582 versus 526. Sold decreased 36% downward, 161 versus 103. Pended up 11.4%, 137 versus 123 homes are pended as of January, as of yesterday. But now we're in February, and we'll see what we'll have to be aware of what this trend is. And again, you can see a lot more homes sitting on the market unsold versus sold. Well, let's look at the month supply of inventory because that's going to tell us the story. And what you'll see is that the month supply of inventory in January jumped dramatically, up 73%, 72.7 to be exact. But from 3.2 months to 5.5 is a massive jump a month. So what does that tell me? It tells me that buyers have tremendous leverage to negotiate much better deals. And I spoke to a gentleman last night, reached out, found me on YouTube, liked what he saw on the videos, and we had a conversation about properties and moving potentially from Orlando, formerly from Boston, wants to escape the cold weather. And unfortunately, right now, he's getting the cold weather that he would be getting in Boston, although not as extreme. But that being said, nobody's overpaying for a house, period. There are, unless you strategically price a home, underprice a home the right way to get multiple offers which bid the price higher, the odds of you getting multiple offers to bid the price higher are zero. And nobody's rushing in with a checkbook in hand, waving it around like they're on fire, saying, I can't wait to buy a home. This is not the market that we're in. This is not 2020. This is not 2021. The monetary policy has tightened tremendously. Inflation has skyrocketed. Affordability is through the roof. And so people are very prudent. They're very patient. They're very disciplined. Nobody's going to overpay for a home. So please, whatever you do, don't overprice your home if you're thinking about selling it. But that's what the month supply is, and that is Boynton Beach. I think we covered everything that we need to see here. No, we didn't. We did not cover price. Price is important, and price means everything. So, what is the value of the homes as of January 30th versus that same time snapshot in December? Well, the average active price was down almost 1.5%, 1.4 to be exact, 712 versus 722, a downtick of almost 1.5% versus the average sold price, which is up 1%, 610 in December, 616 as of January. And as you can see, there's a big difference in the Boynton Beach macro picture versus the Canyons Enclave and the zip code of 33473. So the average price is exactly what it sounds like it is. It's the average. Now, a lot of people will talk about median price and that being instructive. I don't think it is, or at least for me, it's not. I want to know what the average number is. But median is just the middle number of whatever the highest and lowest is. The average is obviously the average. I find that to be more instructive, and that's Boynton Beach. And from there, we're going to move into, let's go to Boca Raton. And right now we're just talking about single family homes, right? So the condos we're not talking about now. And let me look here. Oh, we got 7 people watching live. What is up? How are you doing? Where are you at? Where do you live now? Where are you thinking about moving to? Are you thinking about moving? Or are you never buying a home ever until the market crashes and you get a half price home? Because if that's what you're waiting for, you are going to be waiting forever. Okay. I don't know what I was trying to do here, but we're looking at right now the macro of, that's where I was going with this. This is getting much longer than I thought it was going to be, so I probably will not do the condo breakdown yet. I do have other things that need to get done today, but I do want to start with the single family homes. We'll knock that out. I'll come back and do condos another time, unless you've got some questions, in which case I'll try to field your questions in the comments, which I don't see any. So I'm assuming either one, you don't have any, haven't made any, or my software just, I haven't figured out how to use it on this current setup. But that being said, we're talking about Boca Raton. Boca Raton is extremely affluent. It's extremely expensive. And don't believe me because people can lie, but the numbers scream. The average active price, December of 25 versus November, up 7.2%, 3.733 million versus 3.482. Again, massive delta between the average sold, 1.7 versus 1.433, an uptick of 19% and change. That's the average sold price. But again, that's old information. It's not actionable. Let's look at what happened in January versus December, up to and including yesterday. The average active price is 3.5. Can you hear my dog? Ben, come here, buddy. Come here. Come here, pal. What, do you see a squirrel? Anything's possible. A squirrel, a neighbor, a rabbit in a hat. Who knows? There you go, buddy. Come here. Good boy. Sit down. Sit. Good boy. All right. You want to get a little bit of, you want to buy a house? Huh? So average active price 3.502 versus 3.750, a downtick of almost 7% as far as active price. But ooh, that was a big, I like that. The average sold price upticked almost 13%. So 1.721 jumped to 1.943 in Boca Raton. Again, Boca Raton has markets, especially anything that is close to the beach, anything that is in the Golden Triangle, anything that is in East Boca is going to be extremely expensive, is going to probably be upwards of double-digit millions, right? It's prime time land, very wealthy, but that's throughout Boca. Nonetheless, you can see there is a massive gap between the average active and the average sold, but just know there are markets within Boca Raton that are far more affordable than this, and also there are markets within Boca Raton that are a lot more expensive than this. It's really dependent on where you want to be within Boca Raton. But that being said, month supply of inventory. Friend is either your friend or not, depending on what side of the aisle you are. But always keep in mind that the real estate market is always good for someone. Just depends whom it's good for. Buyers, sellers, investors, I don't know. Depends on what the market conditions are. But real estate will always trade, period. Month supply of inventory uptick 31.2% from 3.8 months in December to 5 months in January. It'll be real interesting to see what happens with mortgage interest rates now that Trump has nominated someone for the chair of the Federal Reserve. Big Papa Powell is out, and it'll be interesting because the Fed chair should be autonomous and independent. But my suspicion is that's not really going to be the case, at least in the beginning. So if you were to go on to Kalshi right now or any of these betting sites, a lot of people are calling for 2 rate cuts very quickly throughout the rest of the year. I don't know, yet to be determined. But you know, when you have a real estate developer as the president of the United States, I suspect he's going to do whatever he can to make to make mortgage interest rates come down, right? To stimulate the economy in ways that are probably not healthy long term, but certainly going to create an effect in the market, which I suspect is going to look like a massive boom in Florida. I've covered this before. If you've been watching for a while, you know we've got DeSantis right now doing what he can to eliminate or reduce property taxes within Florida. And I don't know what the current bill is being reviewed right now. I'm not an insider. I'm not a politician. I don't have insider information. I just know that is his mandate, to bring property taxes down for Florida residents. So that we've got that going. Separately, you got Trump, who's out there and he's saying he doesn't want to create affordability. He wants real estate values to increase. Well, not a shocker. It's Donald Trump, for God's sakes. He is a real estate guy. But I think he's going to do a lot in order to ease mortgage pain, to make affordability less burdensome. And if you are in an 8% mortgage, then I suspect you're going to have the opportunity to refi and lower your monthly burden, right? And the great refi boom that lenders have been talking about for a long time, I've always thought was bullshit up until recently. And now I think that the refi boom is, we're on the cusp of it. So if you do need to refi or want to know more about what that looks like or need a mortgage, again, Ryan Brandenburger, Team Brandenburger at Cross Country Mortgage, they are the best there is. But that's Boca Raton, right? So now from there, let's jump into, I did Boca, I did Boynton. Let's look at Delray Beach, see what that is. Come on, baby, let's go. Let me see if I can free up some memory here. Hopefully that worked. So we are talking about Delray Beach, single family homes. And again, this is going to be very distorted because it's the macro number. Mark Wahlberg just bought a $50 million home in West Delray. And a lot of other people, Steve Cohen, another $50 or $60 million property. There are lots. There is the one percenters, the billionaire class of California and of New York are moving. And they want to be in Florida for lots of different reasons. The odds of there being an ICE raid here in Florida are about zero. Although I did have a run-in recently with a neighbor who, while I was doing a Facebook Live, and I was pointing the camera at myself, took umbrage and thought I might be recording him or his house or his privacy or his car. I don't know what he thought I was recording, but as I was in my vehicle after I had just shot the live stream that I wanted to, I got confronted by an angry man who was banging on my window. And I thought to myself, this guy is lucky I am who I am, because you go banging on the wrong window like that in Florida, you're likely to get your ass shot. But it had a peaceful conclusion, and away he went. It was kind of surprising. I was actually shocked that somebody that diminutive would think it's a good idea to get really aggressive with me like that. But I'm a peaceful guy. You know, we'll make it work, and he'll just have to simmer down biscuit. But here we go. We're talking about Delray Beach, and right now we are talking. I'm scrolling all over the place. We are talking about for sale versus sold versus pended, and we're talking about January versus December. So for sale, uptick 2.1%, decreased massively. The sold homes decreased damn near 30%, and pended was up damn near 30% too. So 434 homes for sale versus 425, 75 sold versus 106, 112 pended versus 87. So what I think you'll see is the trend line, which is that red line that I'm pointing to. And you have to know what the trend is. And again, this is macro. This is Delray Beach. There are micro markets that exist within Delray Beach. If you are near the coastal communities that are in Delray Beach, you are paying a significant premium to live that lifestyle. If you're out west in some of these private gated communities, you are paying a premium for that security, for that land, for that luxury home or that luxury private neighborhood. And there's a massive delta between the highest price market and the lowest price market. So there are homes within Delray Beach that are certainly far more affordable than what you're about to see. It just depends on what you're looking for, what you're shopping for. And obviously I'm committed to telling you the truth, so you know what it is. Month supply of inventory. I don't want that yet. I want price. I want price. How much it gonna cost me? Here we go. I'm going to ignore December and November because it's irrelevant. It's already happened. It's yesterday's news. Let's talk about what's happening right now. Average active price in January down 4%. 2.434 versus 2.531 in the same snapshot of time, December versus January. Average sold price up damn near 30%, 28.6 to be exact. 1.877 million versus 1.460. That is a big uptick. And you can see the hockey stick right here. There's some volatility, right? I mean, those types of moves, average sold down 12%, average sold down up 28%. That's a big swing in terms of numbers, but depends on where you're shopping, depends on the hyperlocal market that you are in, and supply and demand will always dictate price. And what it looks like is month supply of inventory seems pretty flat. Although the numbers, the bar chart, or not, this graph is very yellow. I would love to ski down this mountain, but it seems pretty flat for the most part. But the numbers and the detail tell a different story. The picture says one thing, the numbers scream another, right? So percentage change, month supply of inventory, December versus November, down 22%, 3.9 months versus 5. And then it completely inverts again back to 3.9 up to 5.6, an uptick of 44%. 5.6 months of inventory is a buyer's market. So if you are shopping, that's funny, I was talking to Bella and Jason. So if you're on this live stream or if you see it here soon, we had this conversation, but don't be afraid to look a little bit above what you think your budget is, because most of the times the homes that are listed, and I'll use them as an example, they want something in the low fours. The property that they were looking to buy or are looking to buy or thinking about buying, it started in the mid fives, right? So don't be afraid to go above your budget when you're shopping, because most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, you're going to find that most of the homes that are on the market have been on the market for a long time. And if they are stale, if they are flat, if they are overpriced, there's going to be a massive delta between where they originally listed it and where it actually goes under contract. So getting a $100,000 discount on a home is not all that surprising to me. But it is for many agents. It is for, put it this way, anybody that you're talking to who's representing you, who you're thinking about buying a home with or selling a home with, if at any point they deploy anything that feels like sales pressure, please run, period. Give me a call. I'm happy to help. But there is, and there never will be sales pressure in anything, because the numbers speak for themselves. I can't make somebody do anything. I can't make somebody fall in love with a home, but I can absolutely advise them as to what to do given their circumstance or what they're trying to accomplish within the market, buying or selling. And sellers a lot of time don't like hearing the truth. Buyers tend to love hearing the truth because it usually is in their favor, especially with the market the way it is right now. But that's what the month supply of inventory looks like in Delray Beach. From here, let's see. Wow, 9 of you are still with me. Sawyer, I hope you're watching. I'm sending you a shout out, despite you telling me not to. I love you very much. And shout out to my mom and dad if they're watching too. And shout out to everybody else. I love all of you. But let's get back to, I don't see comments. Why don't I? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Sucker is born every minute in New York. I'm so glad I bought a home in Chardon instead of Naples back in July of last year. And King of Vending, howdy from Texas. Howdy. Howdy from Texas. Actually, I will be in Texas in March, visiting a friend in Austin, Texas. And so I love Texas. Texas is great. But I'm getting phone calls from different places. So, if you watched my recent video, you heard me talk about it. It's not uncommon for me to get phone calls from people from the Northeast, ever. I mean, it's just not uncommon, especially with all the things that are happening right now in New York. It is very rare that I get a phone call from Virginia. And I've had several this week, people from Virginia who are none too happy with the imposition of taxes that they're getting on a regular basis now. A lot of these places that were once affordable are just not affordable anymore. And a lot of the politics, which I know you're not supposed to talk about politics or religion, and yet I do both. It's just not the place to be in many states if you are a job creator, if you have a business, if and and the top 1% have already left. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want. I'm not really talking about them, but regular families, the people who it takes you can't just drop on a dime and move instantly because somebody gets elected, right? It takes time. You probably have kids that you have to think about. You have to think about moving them out of their school or whatever it might be, or your business. You have to think about what it will be like to move your business. You have to think about a lot of different things before you actually make the move. So when all these realtors were talking about this Mondami effect that's going to happen instantly, it didn't. It either already happened or it's happening now, because the people who are reaching out to me now are regular people on regular incomes that just refuse to pay whatever the bill is in California or Virginia or New York or other places too. But a lot of people are, and this is the truth, my phone did not ring from YouTube pretty much at all of 2025. And I know that's not accurate. I'm sure I got a phone call here or there, but I've had more phone calls in the last week from people who are thinking about buying or selling because of the YouTube channel and the content that I put out there, more in the last week than the last year combined. And that is a leading indicator that the market is changing for me. But let's get back into what the numbers are, because people lie and numbers don't. And whoa, we did Delray Beach. Let's go to Fort Lauderdale, because I said I would cover Fort Lauderdale. And I don't lie. Although I just got extremely dizzy, which is not good, but I guess it's good that I'm on a live stream. So if I fall down and pass out, please do something. All right, I don't want to start with. So Fort Lauderdale, we're going macro again, high level. We're starting with single family homes. And what you see is, again, I'm not going to cover December, November, although you can see it there. Decrease of 4%, uptick of 29% on sold, uptick of almost 2% on pended. And January versus December, what you'll see is basically flat on the for sale, 999 versus 990 homes for sale. Sold is 86. Wow, massive change versus 171. A downtick, a collapse, if you will, of almost 50% on the sold properties for single family homes in Fort Lauderdale. Again, macro number. The Fort Lauderdale market has many different markets that are within it. So the hyperlocal market that you might be shopping in will be very different than this number. But if you are close to the beach, if you are on the intercoastal, if you want to live the coastal lifestyle or be on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, you're going to have to pay a very healthy premium. Separate to that, there are lots of other places that are much less expensive. But this is the macro number of everything all inclusive. Sold down again 50%, pended up 17.2, 157 properties, homes, single family homes in Fort Lauderdale versus 134. And let's look at price. I'm wondering why I'm dizzy. It's probably got something to do with me drinking Monster. So, mental note, drink less Monster. But here we go. Average active price versus average sold price, November and December. I'm not going to go into that. But up 2% versus down 3%. Massive delta between what a seller thinks and what a buyer will pay. 3.2 versus 1.3. I just said I wouldn't do it and then went ahead and did it. But let's look at January. Average active price, again, massive delta between sold and active. 3.229 versus 1.724, which average sold price increased 30% in Fort Lauderdale for single family homes in January. Big uptick, up 30%. Months of inventory, months supply of inventory, because supply and demand will always dictate price. Woo-wee! Sweet, loud and lovely. We have an increase of 100% in terms of months supply of inventory. Now, I said I wasn't going to do condos, except we're in Fort Lauderdale, and I think we must talk about what that looks like. But what you can see is an increase from 5.8 months in December to damn near 12 months, a full year for the inventory that's sitting on the market unsold to clear itself. That's what it's 12 months. Month supply of inventory is a year. In case you're wondering, many would argue that anything under 6 months is a buyer's market. I would argue that it's closer to 4 months, maybe even a little bit less than that. But 100%, 12 months is absolutely 1000% a buyer's market. Again, this is macro. So there are micro markets within Fort Lauderdale where this month's supply of inventory will be much smaller. Let's look at condos. I got to see what the condos look like. What do I have to do here? City, location, Fort Lauderdale. Get out of that and let's just look at condos. This is going to be fun. I have not done this in advance, so we're going to both find it in real time. Ha ha! Woo! You know I'm right. You know I'm right because the numbers don't lie. I hadn't looked at it, but in December, there were 13 months of inventory. In January, there's damn near 20 months of inventory. Yes, I rounded up. It's 18.9, an increase of 44.2%. When I said that there is going to be a bloodbath in the condo market, I was not kidding. The month supply of inventory make it very clear that that is true. But let's look at what I can't believe. Actually, I totally believe that's what it is. I said that's what it would be. But this is kind of shocking. Okay, so here we go. Average active price for a condo in Fort Lauderdale. Again, this is macro, so keep in mind that this is comparing condos that are in Fort Lauderdale that are on the beach versus a condo that's out west in the middle of nowhere. So there's a very big difference between those two price points. But this is the macro number, and it gives you some flavor for what the market is for condos. But again, it really depends on where you're shopping, what building you're in, and what the condition and structure financially and physically for that building is. But what you can see is that the average active price was $1,090,000 versus $1,077,000, which was up 1.2%. And the reality of the closings were 681 versus 715, down almost 5%. Again, big delta between the average price and average sold price. If we look at January versus December, what we can see is that the average active price remained flat and 802 versus 673, which is an uptick of 19.2%. But this is no bueno if you are thinking about selling a condo, and it's probably muy bueno if you are looking to buy a condo in Fort Lauderdale, which some folks are, right? But look at this. I mean, look at this graph. The light green is supply and the dark green is sold, and it is pretty crazy. So 1.473, 1,473 condos for sale in January versus 1418, up 4%, 78 of them sold. Wow. That is that's no bueno if you must sell a condo. Pended were 121 versus 105. So the sold dropped month over month, 108 versus 78, a downtick of 28%. So condos, let's look at Miami while I'm here. Miami is probably going to be worse than Fort Lauderdale. And I know I said I wasn't going to cover condos. After starting with, I'm definitely going to talk about condos. And I've been back on, I'm definitely going to. So I'm currently doing it. So let's look at Miami and then Miami Beach. And these are different markets, right? Let's look at Miami. All of them, I suspect, will not be good. So here we go. Yeah, they're not. So this is the supply. You can follow the trend. And this is the demand, which is the dark green. I'm not going to cover, again, this is very macro. I'm not going to cover November versus December. You can see it yourself. But January versus December, For sale, basically flat, 4,400 properties, condos for sale in Fort Lauderdale, excuse me, in Miami. And that's down 0.8%. But there's 4,400 condos in Miami sitting on the market, unsold. 189 of them sold. There is a massive supply of inventory in the Miami condo market. And yes, there are 269 pended, which is flat, but sold price, average sold price. Okay, this tells a little bit of a different story, but 1,030,000 versus 1,038,000, downtick of 0.8%. Again, these numbers, average numbers, keep in mind the amount of inventory. Okay, 784 sold versus 626 versus the 4,400 that are sitting on the market completely unsold. But that's what it is. Month supply of inventory is, oh my God, up. So not as bad as Fort Lauderdale in that the percentage change isn't as high, but worse in terms of month supply. So up almost 100%, not quite, 95.4%. In December, there were 12 months, 1 year of inventory. In January, it doubled. Almost 2 years of inventory to sell. 2 years. If you are looking for a condo in Miami, you have all the leverage. So unbelievable. Not surprising. I don't know why I say it's unbelievable. It's totally believable. It's totally predictable. I've said it here many times, but I honestly haven't looked at this inventory this way in a minute. So we're seeing it together. We're seeing it in real time. But if you don't believe that there's going to be a fire sale in Miami, then you are smoking crack or whatever is worse than crack. Let's look at Miami Beach. I'm not going to do the rest of the markets within Miami, but Miami Beach is a big one. Oh, all right. Well, we're starting with month supply of inventory. It's even worse than Miami. Miami Beach, 25 months, 2 years of inventory, north of 2 years of inventory versus 16 months in January versus 20 months in November. No bueno. If you must sell and you've got a condo in Miami Beach or Miami or really anywhere, and God help you if you happen to be one of the unlucky folks who are on a fixed budget, who are on a fixed income and are getting hit with the assessments that are required by law for your property to be in adherence with the law. And many of these buildings, and I'm talking about Miami here. Yeah, we all know about the Surfside collapse and the building imploding. Many of these buildings are on pilings that really can't support the building anymore. And shout out to Ian for bringing this to my attention. But what often has happened in some of these older buildings is that these condo owners will gut the place. They'll put brand new flooring down, and this flooring can be extremely heavy. So the building originally may have been built to support a certain amount of weight, but every time someone in that building renovates or guts or installs a new flooring that is very heavy, it throws off the weight bearing equation, because a lot of times the newer flooring is much, much heavier. And if you've got a building has a threshold of X and it's been compounded by Y on floors 1 through 30, well, that building is in real danger of collapse. And so the architectural studies, the reinforcement of that building, it must happen. And a lot of people don't have the money to pay for that. It's unfortunate. It is sad. But if they can't take care of those assessments, there's going to be real problems. And developers are licking at the chump to take over those buildings. And eventually they will. I mean, because if you're not compliant in the state of Florida, eventually those buildings and that land will trade to an investor, and it will be at a deep discount. but there's going to be a lot of people who suffer through that financial pain and find themselves homeless, or with far less money than they ever expected, when they're forced to sell because they have to, because they're not compliant. And Miami is one market. Boca Raton has been in front of this for a long time, and most of the municipalities within Palm Beach, most of those buildings have, if not all of those buildings, are compliant in the condo market, which doesn't mean that the condo market still isn't a dumpster fire. It is, but these people have money, so they've paid those assessments. They've taken care of what they need to structurally in many of the Palm Beach markets, but the rest of Florida is not the same. It's very different. And so I suspect that as you go up and down the coast on the east and west coast, there are going to be lots of condos that are not compliant. And I pray to God that there are no more building collapses, but there are going to be a lot of financial collapses, and there will be a fire sale in the condo market. I know some other creators out there, like the Reventures, like the Michael Bordoneros, whom I like. So this is not an attack on either of them. They put out great content, and they do the same shit I do in terms of trying to scare you to click on the content with hyperbolic thumbnails and hyperbolic titles. Right? Nobody's clicking on it if it's not. But they've been talking about the real estate collapse in Florida, and me too. I lead with this. I lead with that, and then tell you the truth if you follow along and actually watch the entire video. But it's clickbait, right? I think they've been wrong on almost everything constantly for now over 5 years, with the exception of the condo market. The condo market predictions are probably accurate because the condo market is going to be a disaster. You can already see that based on the month's supply of inventory, and I only covered a small sample size of what's actually out there. So I'm done with condos. I think that's comprehensive enough. But if you're interested in a condo in any other market, let me know and we'll go through it. All right, so I'm switching back to single family homes. Residential single family homes. And I'm going to jump from Miami Beach to, let's go into Lake Worth and Wellington. Where's Wellington? Let's start here. Wellington. Wellington, very nice. Equestrian capital of the world right now. It is 2 cities over from where I'm at right now in Boynton Beach. Woo! Ooh. Make sure I got this right. Single family homes. I started on month supply of inventory. So let's look at it, right? Month supply of inventory, December versus November, down 47%, 4 months versus 7.6, and well, below me down, jump of 230.4% in month supply of inventory. Supply and demand will always dictate price. But over a year, month supply of inventory, again, macro number in Wellington. There are certainly hyperlocal markets that trade very differently than what we're talking about right now, but you must know what they are, because this number on a macro perspective is telling me that it is a screaming buyer's market. But 13 months versus 4. That is a massive swing in 30 days. We'll see what February presents us with, but the numbers don't lie. Average sold price versus active price, Wellington, again, very distorted numbers. There are properties in Wellington. Wellington is a very affluent area. Some of the best schools in Wellington, Boca Raton, similarly, West Boynton, similarly, West Delray, similarly. But there are other markets within Central and East Boynton that I definitely would not want my kids going to school. They would go private. Same thing with Lake Worth. Same thing with Delray Beach. But Wellington, pretty much by and large, has great schools. But the 3.51 million upticked 14.5% versus November's 3.65. And the average sold price, again, massive delta, let's just call it 1.2 million versus 1.4, down 16%. And January versus December, 3.298 active, what a seller wants, what a listing agent lets them list it at versus 3.543, down 7%. But the average sold price, again, look at the difference between sold price and active price, massive delta. Down 20%, right? January 958 versus 1.2 million. And that trend of supply is definitely not your friend. If you're thinking about selling, 100% your friend if you're thinking about buying. But buyers have leverage. Supply in excess of a year means you have all the leverage in the world. But again, dependent on the market that you're shopping in, because again, this is a macro number. So this is all inclusive of everything within Wellington. And there are micro markets, different subdivisions that are definitely not going to trade the same way these numbers are being reported. But again, this is the macro. If you want to know more detail about a particular micro market that you might be shopping in, let me know and I'll get you up to speed real quick. So that's Wellington. Did we do average versus sold? The graph tells the same story the other two slides. You can see the difference between supply and demand, as indicated by the light green, the dark green, and this trend line, which seems to be on the uptick as far as solds in December. So yeah, and you can see that 74% uptick in sold properties in December versus November, 75 sold versus 43. But I'm more interested in what happened right now, what's happening in real time. And what you'll see is that there's 322 in January single family homes that are for sale in Wellington versus 293, which is an uptick of 10%. But solds are down 67%, 25 versus 75, and pendant down 23%, 38 versus 49. So the trend is not your friend if you're thinking about selling in Wellington. And it's definitely your friend if you are thinking about buying, which, look, there is no right time to buy or sell. It's only when it's right for you, period. And a shout out again to Christy and Ian. But when they first found me, it was 2020. It was as the frenzy was starting. It was when the Fed and when the government and when the Treasury eased financial policy, they brought interest rates down to 2%. They were giving money away left and right. The stimulus, the cash printing, the money printing, all the things they did throughout the COVID era, which 100% led to unaffordability, which is what everybody's suffering from right now. But it set the market on fire in a way where it was not right for them to buy a house when they originally reached out to me. It was not the right time in their lives. They wanted to. They had family here. They've been thinking about it for years, but it took them 6 years for the elements within their life to be right. And so there was no right or wrong, but I can promise you this, and if, I don't know if they'll watch this or not, they typically do, but if it's not the right time for you, don't do it, period. That goes with buying or selling anything. If it's not right for you, don't do it. But you have to know your numbers. You have to know what the market is. And despite the fact that interest rates were very low, which was right for them at that point in time, other factors were not. But if they would have bought a house when they originally listed or when they reached out to me, they would have definitely had 10 to 15 other buyers they were competing against, no doubt. So they would have no leverage in terms of negotiating when they wanted to buy originally. And fast forward 6 years of staying in touch with me, watching my videos, getting things in their own life right to where they could move. And they could, I'll never forget it because Ian said it on our first buyer consultation. I can't wait till you get to make a video that says, I get to max out South Florida living to the fullest, which I have since done that video and made some good friends. But they got $100,000 off the original list price on that property because there was no other buyer. There was no competition. And truthfully, if we hadn't used the right lender to be able for us to close on that property in, I believe it was 7 days, if we couldn't go from start to finish with the lender, with the mortgage company, if we couldn't adhere to that very strict timeline, which meant they had to move very quickly on their paperwork. But it also meant the lender had to move extremely fast in getting the appraisal. Actually, an appraisal was waived. We didn't need an appraisal, but they could have done it in 7 days if needed. But they fully underwrote the buyer up front in order for us to be able to sit in front of a closing table virtually, which should be noted, the listing agent and the seller who get to choose the title agent in Florida completely fucked up the closing. And they did not close the day they should have closed, but that was not an unforced error on our part. That's because the title company fucked up, and it happened the next day. But I share all that only to say, if we didn't have the speed of the financing, there's zero leverage for us to negotiate. So we were able to get our offer accepted, get the $100,000 discount, and everybody's happy. But the key that you must know in buying or selling anything is you need leverage, right? So you must know where the leverage comes from, no matter what your circumstance is, because there is always a way to gain leverage in everything. It's critical that you work with a professional who understands how to get you leverage. But anyway, we're going to go on with this. We are still in Wellington, and I think I covered all this already. So we're going to move from Wellington to Lake Worth. Lake Worth. Show me that chart. Let's see if there's any more. Whoa, here we go. 22 people. Very good presentation. What do you think it will happen in Broward County? You think prices are going up? Sorry, I'm not used to this setup, and I normally have multiple screens that are connected, and today I don't. So kind of winging this one, and I'm just seeing the comments now. So let me go back to howdy from Texas. Oh, what's up, Brandon? And then hello from Brooklyn, David Green in the house. I spoke to you a couple of times on the phone call a couple of years ago. David Green in the house. Brooklyn represent. Chicago represents. We have cash, no debt, looked for 90 days in Southwest Florida, no bueno. Yeah, the Southwest Florida market is very different than where we're at. But I'm curious, where were you shopping in Southwest Florida? And then separately, if you need a real estate professional that specializes in that market, that understands the market the way I do, that negotiates the right way, I can hook you up with that. Okay, Back Bay, they can lower the unit price, but the condo fee is only going up. A $250,000 unit with a $1,200 monthly fee is seriously out of whack. Yeah. So Back Bay. Back Bay 2242 at 1236. Thanks for the comment. Yeah. So one of the things you must be mindful of, right? And to your point, Back Bay, the glut of inventory that I just shared in Miami and Miami Beach and Fort Lauderdale, the the condo fees associated with those buildings are insanely high. The insurance for these properties, which have not been updated or structurally or are not, they have not paid their assessment. They haven't done what they need to do in the building. Those HOA fees are insane, and they were insane to way before. In fact, I had a friend who bought a brand new condo off of Broward Boulevard, right next to the beach, right next to the Templeton building, which I don't know how familiar you guys are with Broward Boulevard or Fort Lauderdale, but right in the financial district of Fort Lauderdale, downtown Fort Lauderdale, brand new building, sick building, everything you could possibly want in this building. And as a young professional, I was in my mid-20s working in the Templeton building there when I was a stockbroker. But anyway, he bought this condo, which was across the street from our building. And when he did it, the price was, I think it was around 800, something like that. But the condo fee then was 1,600. I can't even imagine what the condo fee is now in that same building. It's probably 3,000. Yeah, there is a massive glut of inventory, and most folks don't want to pay, can't afford to pay what those condo fees are. So, yeah, buyer beware. You must know what you're looking for. You must know what you're shopping for, and you must know what the numbers are. But please know that if you are buying a condo, those condo fees, depending on where you're at and depending on what the financial condition of that building is, you could be looking at a massive assessment, a massive upcoming assessment, or a massive monthly fee that is just makes it impossible for you to want to buy and or sell, which is why the numbers suck so bad in all those markets. Okay, what do I think will happen in Broward County? Look, I think prices are going up pretty much everywhere. If not if, when interest rates come down and when DeSantis does whatever he does to make affordability better in terms of property taxes, then I think there's going to be a massive epic run within our markets, plural. I think real estate is going to skyrocket, specifically in Southeast Florida. Just there is no more land to build. There is tremendous demand from other states. And those folks want to be in Florida and they want to primarily be in single family homes. But I think a rising tide will lift all boats. But again, the pricing is just so distorted across the board, at least for now, that I don't know what Trump's going to do. I don't know what the new Fed chair is going to do. I think I know, but I don't know anything until it happens. But I would not be surprised if the next boom that we see is similar to what it was during the pandemic. Not the same, similar. But I also don't know that there won't be another pandemic. Who knows? I mean, we are in very crazy times right now. And it's, if you think about it too much, it's scary. What I will say is just know that at the end of the day, we're going to be all right. Okay? There is nothing to panic about. The only thing there is to fear is fear itself. But just know you're ain't nobody overpaying for anything on my watch. But yeah, I do think certain markets within Broward are more attractive, I think, than others. But I think by and large that Broward, oh, you wrote Brevard. Ooh, it would help if I could read. Brevard County. I actually went for a short period of time in high school. I went to Florida Air Academy, which is in Melbourne, which is in Brevard County. But I don't have access to that information, so I don't know. I would tell you that Brevard probably will not appreciate remotely close to what I think Broward will. But it's been a minute since I've been in Brevard, and I haven't really done any research on that. So honestly, I'm kind of just talking out my ass. What happened to the road mic? You can't use it here on live. No, I can't. I'm pissed. I actually have it plugged in, and I tried to use it, and I can't. There may be a solution. I just didn't figure it out yet. So I'll spend some more time with that. And I apologize for the suboptimal audio. I live in Palm Bay. I like it here, but houses are high. I came from North Carolina. North Carolina. Yeah, man, welcome to Florida. Glad you're here. I hope you like it. And let me jump back into the numbers. I covered everybody's comments. Thank you for commenting. Hopefully I answered your questions, but we did Lake Worth. Let's do Coral Springs and then Parkland. Coral Springs and Parkland are both cities that I used to live in. And they used to be really nice areas. They have changed dramatically over the years. And I'm not knocking either Coral Springs or Parkland, but lots has changed, right? Let's look at the numbers. So, and I still have friends in both places. It's by and large, it is a nice place to live, but it is super congested. There's a reason why I moved out of there into Palm Beach County. And unfortunately, over time, I suspect the same thing that's happened in Broward County will happen in Palm Beach County. And the trend line will continue. People will continue to push north. That being said, we're talking about Coral Springs right now. Single family homes for sale, 208 versus 216, January versus December, down 4%. Sold, down almost 50%, 42 versus 80. It's a big jump. And then, or excuse me, not jump. It's a big jump downward, a deep jump downward. That does not make any sense whatsoever. A massive decrease, and then pended 66 versus 44, a massive uptick. But price is what we talking about. And what you're going to see, average price 794 versus 800, basically flat January and December, and then sold 724 versus 715, an uptick of 1.3%. Let's look at the month supply of inventory. So basically flat in Coral Springs. Ooh, the trend in terms of month supply of inventory is not your friend, although it's not really a trend yet. It is 1 month, but November versus December, it downticked 15%. Not really that surprising because a lot of folks, and Coral Springs is typically, there are lots of families that live there. Nobody wants to sell their home during the Christmas holiday season unless they must. So I'm not surprised that that number is on the downtick, November versus December. But I am surprised that it was such a big jump, 85%, 2.7 to 5 months. That's something you got to keep an eye out on because it is not a trend until there's, let's call it 3 months in a row. But an uptick at 85% certainly is a big deal, which takes me to Parkland. If I can find it. I can find it because I know the alphabet. Parkland, here we go. Show chart. Thank you for sticking with me. I know this is long. It's been a long time, so there was a lot to cover. But Parkland, what we're talking about pricing now, right? I'm going to skip over November and December. You can see it here. But let's talk about what it was January versus December. Average active price, still pricey. 1.833 versus 1.829. What you might notice is that the difference between the average price, the average active price, and the average sold price is very tight. That spread is very tight. That spread we have not seen anywhere else in any of the other markets that we've covered. There's typically a massive delta between the average active and the average sold. Coral Springs is more homogeneous in terms of the markets that exist within it. So although there's a bit of distortion, it's pretty close, right? So hence those numbers are very similar. But an uptick of almost 19% in terms of average sold price. Again, supply and demand will always dictate price. We'll have to keep an eye on what the supply looks like. Month supply of inventory. I think we just covered that. Yeah, we did that. We did this. And now we're looking at sold versus, again, light green is unsold. Dark green is what has sold. And it looks pretty consistent in terms of the trend line. But again, I'm not going to cover December, November. For sale, down 12% in January. 110 properties versus 125. 24 sold versus 38. A downtick of 37%. And an uptick in pended, 80%, 25 in December versus 45 in January, which again is fairly consistent with that delta that was tight, right? So Coral Springs is what it is. And I have been going on now for almost an hour and a half. So I'm going to cut this short. Let me see if there's any more comments. Came late to the live. Do you think Tampa is a good time to buy if a wedge deal appears? I think Tampa is a great place to buy if it's right for you. And if you need somebody who is an all-star in Tampa, I've got exactly your man, Mike Constantine, depending on where you're at in Tampa. And Mike, if you're watching, shout out to you. But yeah, I've got, if you're shopping in any other place within Florida or really anywhere else in the country, I know, like, and trust all-star professionals that work almost each and every market. And if I don't, I'll tell you that. the last thing I'm going to do is refer you to somebody who is not an all-star professional in terms of understanding the market and negotiating, because that would be stupid. All right. Patricia French, what's up? And what's up, Cash In? I like that name, Cash In. Let's cash in, baby. Both hubby and I grew up in Naples with our folks and in-laws. It's changed so much, especially over the last 10 years. We love the vibe more in Marco, but unwilling to pay 1.5 plus for size of our gar. The size of our garage, I'm assuming, or family or whatever. Yeah, Tampa's pricey. I mean, Naples is pricey. Marco Island is pricey. And I suspect it's going to get pricier as things change within the country. But they're long way of getting to. The market's irrelevant, period. It's when it's time for you to do whatever it is that you want to do, right? So if buying is not right for you now, then don't do it. If selling is not right for you now, then don't do it. But if you must sell, there are certain things that you must know. And if you must buy or want to buy, there are certain things that you must know. The economic policy is the thing I can't control, and I have no idea what's going to happen in terms of Trump and team pulling a rabbit out of their hat to make affordability more affordable, to make homes trade again, to get mortgage interest rates down again. I don't know what they're going to do, but I suspect that they're going to do lots of things that have never been done before because of this mandate to make affordability happen. I just don't see. I could see it happening on the mortgage side. The unintended consequence of easing financial policy is that, and it's not, I don't know if it's unintended or intended, but if interest rates become what they once were, which I don't think they do, I don't think we're going to see 2% interest rates anytime soon. But we might, and if it does, I think we're going to see a massive boom in real estate values in Florida. But irrespective of whether that happens or not, I think the country dynamics are so different now and are worsening in ways that are horrific right now that I'm not surprised that the regular people who aren't the billionaire class are now making moves down to Florida because it's the right thing to do for their family or themselves, financially or politically or just what lifestyle. The phone hasn't rang more in the last week than it has in the last, did I say that right? It hasn't rang this much in a long time. And so I am very grateful and thankful for everybody who reaches out. I will take great care of you no matter what. Yeah, and Patricia, as far as, look, I would be shocked, although I know Marco Island is very pricey. I don't work the Marco Island market, so I don't know how distorted it is. But I'd be absolutely shocked if, with some research, you found that there are lots of properties in Marco Island that see. So you say, hold on. Unwilling to pay out 1.5 million for our size. I would be really surprised if, while you're looking for properties around that 1.5, I don't know what your budget is, right? But let's say it's $1 million instead of 1.5. Well, I would be shocked if you, with some research, didn't find that there are lots of opportunities in that market where you have stale listings that have been on the market for a year or 6 months, or multiple listings that have expired unsold. It would not surprise me if there's a big distortion in terms of pricing in your market, because I see it here. And so the markets are similar, they're not the same, but it wouldn't surprise me if with some research, you did some homework and you weren't able to negotiate a much better deal to somebody who's been sitting on the market unsold for a long period of time, long enough to come to Jesus, and has felt enough pain from the market to start to get reality based. So if you need help with that, reach out. I'm not going to be able to do that for you in Marco Island, but I certainly can put you in touch with somebody who can. And that's it. We've been on here for an hour and a half. My daughter is probably mad I have not picked her up yet. And Sawyer, if you're watching, I'm coming to get you now. It is 12:55. It is February 1st. I love you all. Thanks for watching. If I can help in any way, reach out directly. Been researching for 9 months from October until the end of December. Yeah, you got to be patient. Patient, prudent shoppers, disciplined shoppers are always going to win. It sounds like you are. And so, yeah, if you need help with that, let me know. Reach out directly. Chris Igo, 561-516-2442. Hope you all have a phenomenal day, a phenomenal week, a phenomenal year. And I'm back to making these live streams. So I hope you found it valuable. I hope you will subscribe to the channel, reach out with any questions. And I look forward to seeing you on my next live stream. Peace.